Well, Bob, as you said, it takes a real entrepreneurial person to even come to this state and live here, because they really were having to set out, you know, from doing the norm, maybe back east, and to come here. Let's talk about some of those personalities that have really forged their own path.
Well, of course, I have so many people in Oklahoma history that I admire. You can go back to the E.W. Marlins, and you can go back to the Charles Colcords and the W. Skellys, you know, these people who built the state. But more contemporary people who I admire would include Jack Zink. I just finished a book about Jack Zink of Tulsa. We have the book. We have a museum exhibit on Jack at the History Center. Jack Zink.
And tell us who he is. I think not everyone may recognize that name.
Right. If you travel on Turner Turnpike, people may have seen the sign for the Zink Ranch. That may be as much as they know. People in Tulsa, of course, know. But Jack Zink is a third-generation Oklahoman. Typically, a family comes to Oklahoma as farmers or merchants. His grandparents did. They came. They settled in Norman. Their son, who went to college in the 1920s, was John Zink. He got a degree in chemistry, got a job with Oklahoma Natural Gas Company, which was just expanding. In 1928, they needed new chemists. And so he was out serving the industrial community with trying to increase the use of natural gas. Sounds familiar today, but to increase the use of natural gas in 1928 for industrial purposes. And as he would go from customer to customer, he would see the inefficient burners that they were using. He goes back in his garage and uses his skills and comes up with a better burner that's more efficient, that'll use that natural gas, create more profit that goes into bigger business, that goes back into using more gas. It all makes sense. Well, he creates his own company in 1930. Great Depression gets him immediately. He says no more business in the industrial sector, so he goes to floor furnaces. And it's a small, modest business coming into the 1940s. Well, his son, Jack, is growing up in this community, learning how to work in the blacksmith shop, learning how to work in the foundry, goes off to college at Oklahoma A&M to become a mechanical engineer, goes home. And he has two careers at this point. One is building that business into an international business selling burners around the world, literally. It becomes international with offices in England and Germany and Japan, doing burners, incinerators, pollution control devices, flares. But he's also getting into racing. Very competitive. He builds his first race car as a teenager, a little 60-inch chassis midget racer. But he goes into stock cars, and he puts a car on the championship race series. We best know it as the Indy Series. Okay. And in 1955, he wins the Indianapolis 500. 1956, he wins it again. And unprecedented success. And he is the king of Indianapolis in the racing world from the early 50s to the early 60s. Develops a car with a turbine engine on it. It never wins, and others would take that concept and race it. But Jack was the innovator. And so here's a man building a business, creating jobs, being very competitive in the racing world. And it's one of my favorites.
And you have one of Jack's cars at the History Center.
We do. We have his 1956 championship car that won the Indianapolis 500. People can come in and visit that today.
You know, one story that I've heard you tell before is about a rural family from Perry, Oklahoma. I think is particularly interesting about building that better mousetrap.
That's right. And perseverance and hope for a better day, love of Oklahoma, all of the things that you and I love about Oklahoma, especially rural Oklahoma, is that there was a German immigrant from Saxony, Germany, that was looking for a place to settle around the turn of the century, 1900. And he looked at for a big boom area. Well, that was Oklahoma. We were growing. The rains had come back, prices were up, so he settles in the little town of Perry, creates a blacksmith shop named Carl Malzahn. He does well, raises a family. His son comes along. People don't need blacksmiths as much by the 1920s. Times are changing, challenges, looking for opportunity. He starts a machine shop that is servicing the oil and gas industry popping up around Perry. Makes a good living. Sends his kid off to college. College kid comes back home. Ed Malzahn. World War II has just been fought. What is he going to do? No more blacksmith skills are needed. Machine shop is declining because the oil patch is in depression in the 1940s and 50s. Well, he says, I'm going to look for opportunity. Develops a couple of inventions like the Geronimo to bail out of a burning oil rig. He engineers a portable collapsing oil rig, but he doesn't have the capital to go into production. Finally comes up with something that works. A single operator, self-propelled trenching machine. that is small enough to get through a gate, to go into a backyard, to work in the housing industry. That's mass production by the 1940s and 50s with all these GIs wanting homes. He gets the price down, something that people could afford, and that's the beginning of the Ditch Witch. 1948, 1949. Today, Ditch Witch is sold on all but 2 continents, Antarctica and Africa. Everywhere else in the world. That is an American success story. That is an Oklahoma story.
A very international company out of small town Oklahoma. Now, one of the things, you've talked about some traditional industries, but I want to talk a little bit about popular culture, and in particular, a gentleman by the name of Jim Halsey.
Yes. Oklahoma excels in so many areas of creativity. You look at our Miss Americas. We have more, almost across the board, not just per capita. Miss Americas in all of American history. More astronauts per capita than any other state. Athletes like Jim Thorpe and Mickey Mantle, you know, Johnny Bench. We go on with how Oklahomans have excelled. It's the same story in music. We know about our rock and roll pioneers, such as J.J. Cale and Leon Russell and David Gates out of Tulsa. We know about more modern stars, but we are the home of country and western music. People usually think about Nashville when you think of country and western. You can make an argument that it began in Oklahoma and because of one man, Jim Halsey. Jim Halsey had come to Oklahoma. He grew up right on the Kansas-Oklahoma border, right across the border, got into promotion as a teenager, was promoting concerts in 1949, 1950. But he meets a big band leader who does this new style of music called Western Swing, kind of a Bob Wills, Johnny Lee Wills. Hank Thompson is his name. And he has the Hank Thompson and the Brazos Boys band. Jim Halsey meets him, becomes his manager, takes him to Oklahoma City, and Jim is this entrepreneur. He's looking for ways to do more with his music. Television is brand new, went on the air in 1949 in Oklahoma City. He makes a deal to put Hank live on WKY on Saturday evenings. That night, booked into a local club. People see the live music, they want to get up and dance, they like it, fills the ballroom, sells advertising. Well, he goes on from Hank to meet a young girl who's just coming out of Capitol Hill High School named Wanda Jackson, country and western singer, learns rockabilly. Jim gets her into Las Vegas, builds her career. She hires a 20-year-old guitarist, introduces him to Jim. Jim sees something in him and starts promoting him, a young man named Roy Clark. Kind of helps work with Roy over those years, gets him on to Hee Haw, international star, the first country and western musician to make it big on the Strip in Las Vegas, the first country and western star to open their own place in Branson. Over the years, Jim would represent more than 41 stars, all the way from Hank and Wanda and Roy to Reba, discovered her, became her manager, built her career, got her into the Carnegie Hall in New York City, turned her into an event. Dwight Yoakam, the Judds. Today, after 60 years in the business, Jim Halsey out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, still represents the Oak Ridge Boys. I love it. And when I talked to him on the phone just literally 30 minutes ago, he was working a deal for the Oak Ridge Boys to play around the country. So this is an Oklahoma entrepreneur who saw the talent, understood the business, and made it all work and helped build our music industry in the country.
Well, when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about popular culture.